just saw the movie Longlegs, and I'm like, oh my god, I need to talk about it. So I love it. First of all, I'm gonna premise this with I love it. It definitely feels like an X-Files episode. You know, you've got the FBI agent who is like psychic. You've got some Satanism stuff going on, but feels a bit like a evil trans woman trope. Hear me out. I don't think it's intentional at all. There's a pretty common like trope for horror movies that is in like Psycho and Silence of the Lambs, that is basically like trans woman adjacent murderers. So for instance, Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill. There's a whole scene in Silence of the Lambs where the like psychologists are like, no, this person is not transgender. He's just delusional, right? But I still think that doesn't do much good when you're literally watching someone murder in order to like wear women's skin, right? It like kind of hits that subconscious, transphobia. Psycho is another one where I think there's also another scene be like, this is not a true trans woman. Again, there's a man who is literally dressing up as, in Norman Bates' case, as his mother, right? So there's a murderer who is acting, quote unquote, as a woman. Idea is that this is like subconsciously very like anti-trans, right? As a trope, not like intentionally necessarily. Like obviously the movies are trying to like separate out, but in terms of like the social consciousness, it does affect that like kind of transphobia talk. It turns out the director of Longlegs is the son of the actor who played Norman Bates. And in interviews, Oz Perkins talks about how when he wrote the film Longlegs and directed it, it's very much about his like relationship with his parents, which to not be too spoily, there's definitely some like Longlegs is kind of a surrogate dad figure, a little bit spoily, and then in relation to the main character. One of the things they played with was subverting the story of Silence of the Lambs, right? Like you have the woman FBI agent who's, trying to find a serial killer, but instead of it being all just psychological thriller like in Silence of the Lambs, they're like, but what about if Satanism, which I'm like fully here for. The thing that like kind of tipped me off to it was that Longlegs, like the character that Nick Cage plays, is very androgynous, like long hair, very like pale skin, very fair looking, but also looks like he's had a lot of plastic surgery, which is kind of like also maybe a dig, Again, I don't think intentional, but I think that is, from what I saw, the director was saying that like doing lots of botched plastic surgery to try to look beautiful for Satan and to be androgynous. So those are my 2 cents. Again, I don't think it's like inherently transphobic. I thought it was really interesting. I deeply love the movie, and I think it's interesting how that trope continues on.